What is up? 大家好, this is Freed's first time, and I am Freed, and we are still actively avoiding the United States and Scotland. Today we're heading to Spain, southern Spain. We've got a 12-year-old single malt aged only in sherry barrels. Let's check it out. Alright, what we have here is La Cosecha, which is Spanish for the harvest. It's coming out of Jerez, Spain. Well, actually, Jerez de la Frontera, which just means sherry of the border. So Jerez just means sherry in Spanish. Now, I'm having a damned hard time finding any information on this distillery or just on this whiskey in general. So the majority of the information is going to have to come from the bottle, which the bottle itself has a few, confusing elements to it, and I'll read it in a second. But it's 12 years old, pot still, no coloring, no filtration, and aged specifically in and only in PX and Oloroso sherry, so no bourbon barrels whatsoever. And from the look of it, it makes sense because it looks quite dark. So right now I'm going to read the bottle to you, and I want you to, come to your own conclusions as to the legitimacy of this. So on the front, it just has the name of the whiskey, La Cosecha. Hand-selected oak casks, aged 12 years, single malt whiskey, pot still, non-chill filtered, natural color, matured in PX sherry casks. And 40% ABV, which that's a darn shame, but whatever, it is what it is. Now, the back, this is where it gets fun. Matured in PX sherry casks, hand-selected oak casks. This great malt whiskey was distilled using the traditional pot still method. It was firstly aged in Oloroso sherry casks and further finished in PX sherry oak casks. It is well balanced with hints of PX sherry, dry fruits, and softed influence of deep toasted oak wood. Well, now, softed, not in the dictionary, but it is a legal word for Scrabble, so we can let it slide. And I guess it can be synonymous with softened, but it's still just a very, very strange word. But typos aside, let's not throw it out just on that. As previously mentioned, there's not a whole lot of information online about this distillery or about this whiskey in general. I mean, I couldn't find anything, even just Spanish whiskey, period. I couldn't find a whole lot of information, let alone this one specifically. But, a little bit about the area where it came from, Jerez. It's just, Jerez just means sherry in Spanish, so that's what they do there. It's a huge sherry town, region. So they just, I guess, decided to try their hand at making single malt whiskey. Okay, let's try it. It's a pretty small place. It's only about 213,000 people, so says the World Wide Web. La Cosecha. Back here with you. Now, obviously, you can see right away that the color is quite dark. Well, I wouldn't say quite dark, but pretty dark. Pretty dark. It almost looks like oversteeped tea, if you ask me. Kind of a light brown. Now, on the nose, I'm getting, obviously, it was only aged in sherry barrels, so we're gonna get a whole lot of that. And yeah, definitely some cherry, some blueberry. Cherry and blueberry bubblegum, specifically, if that, I hope that makes sense. Raisins, sweetness, a little bit of, a little tobacco, and a little bit of chocolate. It reminds me of this, back when I was a kid, we used to go to the mall all the time, and there was this store that just called Crumbakers, and it sold a lot of different things, mostly like pipe tobacco and pipes and cigars, and we would go in there because it always smelled really good. And they all had a really cool knife display. We would go and just look at the knives for some reason. But there was this one tobacco in particular called Cherry Cavendish that I remember the smell of it so well, and I'm getting a little bit of that in here. Yeah, a little bit of black tea as well. That's not a bad nose, really, and there's no alcohol burn. It's 40%. That's lovely. It's nice and soft. I enjoy that. All right, well, let's take a sip. Kanbei. I'm getting that tobacco right up front on the palate. It's very delicate though, nice and soft. It does coat the tongue nicely. More black cherries, plums. Most of those dark fruits, dried fruits too, that you would associate with a sherry matured or sherry finished whiskey. It's gone. Where'd you go? Yeah, it's fairly simple on the palate. I wish the complexity of the nose would kind of mirror the palate, but I'm not finding it yet. God, quit taking such big gulps. It's nice, it's delicate, it's very, very mellow, and there's no whole lot to it. If there was just a 46% ABV on this, it would change immensely for the better, and I wish maybe there's a cask strength version of it out there. I just luckily came across this on one of my whiskey groups that I'm a part of over here in China, and thought I'd give it a shot, because I've never tried Spanish whiskey before. But it's okay, it's worth trying out. I mean, if you can find it, which I highly doubt, but what do I know? I mean, I don't know what they're selling in American liquor stores these days. You might be able to find it. And if you like overly sherried, I wouldn't say overly sherried, but if you like sherried whiskeys, give it a go. It wasn't that expensive, I don't think. I think I paid maybe $50 for it, roughly. Now, the finish is where this thing kind of falls off a cliff, because it's quite brief. Yeah, it's brief, it's woody, it's dry, it's gone. Which is a damn shame. But I think if it had a little bit more ABV, I think that would help remedy that situation. So, honestly, this thing, the nose is good, the palate, so-so, and the finish, no, not really. So, there's not a whole lot of notes to it. So I'm going to equate this to Funky Town. Won't you take me down to Funky Town? You know, it's kind of... There are only a few notes to Funky Town, but you like it. You know you do. It is kind of good. It's kind of catchy. Is it something you're going to recommend and play over and over and over again? No. But it's still quite catchy. You kind of like it. So that's going to be my music comparison for this run. Right on. Well, La Cosecha. Done and done. So yeah, thanks for coming by, and we'll see you next time around.